everybody, this is Ingi from Tarot Ingi. Welcome to this video about Queen of Swords. Queen of Swords can speak of someone who is a little bit on the cynical. All the queens really speak of intuition and being connected to your life and knowing intuitively that you are living a life that is yours by divine right in some way. There's some destiny and connection to your soul and the people in your life and your life purpose. All the queens speak of this meaning, this deeper meaning to your life. But Queen of Swords is the most cynical of all the queens, so she could have a little harder time to accepting the things that are going on. She could be challenging reality in the sense that she wants to control things. She wants to control the outcome. She can represent a person who's been hurt in love, who could be even bitter about it but covering it up. Queen of Swords often lick their wounds by, focusing on career and things that they can be in control over. So they end up living a little bit in their head. Sometimes she can speak of someone who's a bit cold. But it can also be that the environment is a bit cold, and therefore if you get this card in a situation, it can mean that you have to live in that environment, and maybe it's affecting you in some way. So maybe it's an environment where you kind of have disconnected from a little bit on an emotional level. Maybe it's a very stimulating environment, but maybe you are not really connecting to. Maybe you're just kind of like looking at everything very analytically. But with all the queens, you're meant to have an emotional connection. So with Queen of Swords, it can mean that you need to work a little bit on the emotional. How do you connect to it emotionally? See it more from a heart perspective. You could feel when this card is showing up that you're being judged, and that could make you feel uncomfortable. And that could also be the reason why it's very easy when Queen of Swords describes the situation, and the seeker as well, to want to just put up a barrier. It can also be that you are following the guidelines or the rules of a situation. Just maybe there is no way of getting through or getting past, or maybe seeing another point of view or a way forward. It can be a little bit of a narrow-mindedness of just following the rules and not questioning, or maybe you're not allowed to question. So it could also be a situation where you're not allowed to question what's going on. You just have to follow it, and that could also make you uncomfortable, especially if you are someone who really needs to question everything and you don't like to accept everything just on face value. In a love reading, Queen of Swords can speak of needing to make more of a heart connection. It could be very hard to let the wall come down, and that could lead to self-sabotage in personal relationship. When Queen of Swords shows up in a love reading, it can mean that it's easy to push people away, that's easier. But don't miss out on love just because it's easier to push people away. If you allow people close, in the long run, it's better for you. Think of what you want in the long run. What sort of life do you want to have long term? It's easy to push people away and think short term that's gonna make all your problems go away, but long term it could be a bad thing. In a career reading, Queen of Swords speak of someone who's very focused on career, especially if you get to be coordinator or manager or professor or lecturer, where you get to be in charge and tell people what to do, or tell people what they're meant to be doing or what they're meant to understand. Because Queen of Swords is quite a cynical card, and there has been some pain there, especially in relationships. She often signifies a no rather than a yes. However, you can turn this situation around. You can absolutely turn it around, but with the Queen, she usually pushes things away, even good things. So if you're asking if something's going to happen and it's something that you want, and you get Queen of Swords, it could mean that subconsciously you're pushing it away, because it's usually something within you that says it's not safe to have it. And the reason why it feels like a threat, it has something to do with the emotional side to it. When Queen of Swords describes feelings, she speaks of having strong feelings but not knowing how to really deal with those feelings. And also feeling that you always have to be strong. And that it's not safe to be vulnerable. And not safe to open your heart. And that an open heart leads to heartache. And it's like the seeker can't take any more heartache, so they rather just close off. So it's like, it can mean that it's hard to let someone love you completely. And it can also mean that it's withholding of affection as well. If you're asking how someone is feeling about you, it can mean that this person is afraid of loving you. They don't know how to let their guards down, and it's actually a battle going on within this person. And they just don't know how to deal with their feelings, so they're escaping their heads instead. And that's just to protect themselves. As a personality type, it is someone who can come across as a bit cold, but they are intelligent, independent, and they are often quite mature because they've been through quite a lot in their lives. And they're often very classy and sophisticated as well. And they do like to dress well and to look well. And they don't really tolerate a lot of nonsense and childish behavior. They don't like it when it's the bottom of the barrel, lowest denominator. They like things when it is intelligent and sophisticated. And they're often very judgmental as well. Like, they notice if someone else is doing something wrong, but they don't always notice when they are doing something wrong. They like to be at the top end of society and organizations. They're often very educated. They like to fight what they believe is honorable causes, but they don't like to get their hands dirty. So sometimes they can come across as hypocritical. They excel often in organizational activities, and that's when they often shine the most. They're very convincing people, and they're very good at politics. They can be very funny, and they're often very funny. And when they turn on their charm, it's very hard to resist them. She is courageous in her own ways, can come across as cold, but also cool. She's often calm and collected, and she believes she's smarter than most people. However, if Queen of Swords is reversed, it's someone who's unable to keep their cool. So then it's problems with mental activity, problems with communication that leads to frustration. It can also mean throwing around accusations. It can also be problems with technology. It can be problems with computers and phones, as well as a language barrier. It can mean that the seeker is very misunderstood, or is misunderstanding everybody around them. And it's someone who's disconnected emotionally. And the Queen of Swords reversed often mean that the seeker needs to be more forgiving and forgive themselves as well. That is actually all the queens. When you get it in block position or reversed, it is that you often need to forgive yourself, be less hard on yourself, be more forgiving. And if Queen of Swords is reversed, it can also mean someone who's going through a very bitter breakup, even divorce, and it's very hard on the seeker. Queen of Swords reversed as a person, it can mean someone ruthless, someone who has very little or maybe no compassion for others. It can mean that someone who is very confrontational and throws away all their good relationships, and everything good in their lives gets thrown away and ruined. They jump to the wrong conclusions often. They can come across as very cold-hearted and unjust. And they can have very cold eyes. So even if they give you a smile, when you look in their eyes, you can see dead, cold eyes staring back at you. Sometimes it's not as dramatic as that. Queen of Swords reversed can simply just mean that it's difficult to concentrate, difficult to connect to your life purpose, difficult to be excited about what you're doing. And that you need to think a little bit more logical about things. But sometimes Queen of Swords can also show up reversed when you're dealing with a very difficult person, someone who's not feeling anything, and who is therefore capable of quite a lot of nasty things. What they need to do to turn this around is to go back into the Knight of Swords energy. And this is often who they were before bitterness took hold of them. So Queen of Swords was someone who was very curious about life, someone who's open-minded. But Queen of Swords is different. She's very, very, very different. If you do get Queen of Swords with the High Priestess, it's all about your emotional health and well-being. If you get Queen of Swords with another queen, it could mean a friendship, like a female friendship that is very strong. If one of the queens are reversed, it can mean a friendship that was strong, but it's turned toxic. Or it could just mean someone you're crashing with, someone you're colliding with. Let's see what the runes have to say about Queen of Swords. Okay, so what I'm getting a very positive rune at the bottom, which is Ingus, which is maybe the most positive rune. It speaks of strength. It's the god Frey, the king of horses. Is a Swedish king and their god, and he gave them prosperity and peace. That's what it stands for. The next rune that goes up, it kind of goes up like as if it's a person standing up. So it can denote the belief system that creates the person. It's Cerisas, which is another male rune. It's Thor. So it's about protection and defense. So it's someone who wants to defend something that's very important to them. And then the next card is Bracana, which is a tree that grows, but depends where they're at in the journey. Are they a seed, a small tree, a big tree? Then it is Hagalas. And Hagalas is at the top. And this rune basically speaks of hail. So it's like basically what Queen of Swords mean. It means someone who expects, Ingus, but end up with Hagalas. So it's like their expectations and reality is not connecting. So they get disappointed, and that's where they get frustrated and angry. It's like they want prosperity and peace, but they seem to end up with hail. And then when they get the hail, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to weather the storm, so they act out. And that's when you see the aggressive side to Queen of Swords. That's when you see her, when she gets cold and bitter and angry, it's because she's so frustrated with what's going on on the outside. It doesn't fit what she thinks it should be. So she doesn't deal with the reality of what's going on. She wants it to be something else. She's so invested in it has to be this way, and she can't handle it if it is a different way. And that is what the Queen of Swords, and the Queen of Swords is someone who really wants to change society, who wants to change the world. She wants to make the world a perfect place. But so it's like she can see what's wrong out there, but she doesn't always dare to look within to see what can I change within me. That's the issue that you see in Queen of Swords, because there is a little bit of conflict in Queen of Swords and the need to change everything around, to make things a certain way so it matches what she thinks it should be. That's the motivation behind everything that she does. So if you do get Queen of Swords in your reading, it could be that something goes on in your life that you totally disagree with, and you want to change it. You very strongly want to change it because it doesn't match or fit with your value system. It's completely at odds with it, and it's a reality that makes you upset and angry. And you can do belief work on yourself and see the deeper meaning around why things are happening, because it's often something that's beyond your control. It's Hagalas, it's the weather, it's a storm, it's something you can't change it. It's just something that's going to come and it's going to change things but you have to be more flexible maybe, or adapt, or even accept something that has been hard to accept. That's the lesson and the meaning of Queen of Swords. Next card I'm gonna do is King of Swords. Bye.